I like my own company. Sometimes maybe a little too much. Let me explain. I think it came from my early days. Yes, I had friends, but not many. I wasn't one of the popular guys, far from it. And I think from that stemmed an enjoyment of being alone. I was used to it, I was good at it, and I was starting to prefer it. My granddad had a book. For me it was the book, the AA book of the British countryside. I remember visiting the woods close to my house after reading it, starting with a search for bugs and referencing the book to find out what they were called. This went for flowers and trees as well, and eventually birds, and that's where my first real passion blossomed. I'd often get neckache from looking up into the treetops so much, but from there came an appreciation of the world around me. Everything in that book had me fascinated, but the sections on birds and fish had me really intrigued. I had to be outside at every opportunity. Nothing that could be found in that book could be found inside the house, or at least very little. For a good couple of years the birds kept me occupied. Those were easy to find. You only had to scan the rooftops and the trees. And the garden was always a good place to sit and observe. But with the fish it wasn't quite so easy. They lived in a hidden world, one that as an 8-year-old I didn't have access to, but that was to come. By the time I was 12, fishing came along, and although I was introduced to it by a friend, even then I liked nothing better than to grab whatever I could get my hands on, bread, bacon, it didn't matter, as long as I had something to feed the crabs and the gobies, and toddle off on my own to the creek. I'd often arrange at school to fish at the weekends with others, but if I had to go it alone, it mattered not. Alone I could go as I pleased. I only had myself to worry about. Slightly selfish, yes, but that's how I liked it. I used to talk to myself too, pretend I was the presenter of a fishing programme on TV, pretending I was the next John Wilson. We've all done it, don't judge me. Nobody's perfect. Even now not much has changed. I like a social one now and then, but for the most part I like to go it alone. Where do I want to fish? When do I want to go? And ultimately, I can decide when enough is enough and sack it off at any given moment. I think deep down that's always been my preference. I find motivation an issue these days. One minute I can think of nothing but getting to the water whenever humanly possible. And other times I feel as if I should go, but I can't be bothered. Too busy doom scrolling, complaining that it's too windy, that it might rain, that the tides are wrong, and there's not much being caught right now. The last thing I want to do is force myself to go. There's no enjoyment in that. It has to be an urge, and when it's there, I know it. I think the major issue right now is that the brain is never given time to be bored. Being bored allows us to become creative. Being bored allows us to think, and thinking can lead to a great many wonderful things. Starve the brain of thoughts and fill it with online doom and gloom, and it's like chopping the legs off a horse. Okay, maybe a bit far, but you get what I mean. I think I'm one of the lucky ones too, being able to accompany my love of the outdoors and observing wildlife with my passion for angling. Be it on the open coast, a muddy creek, a trickling stream, or a secluded carp pool somewhere off the beaten track. I love them all in equal measures and tend to go through moments of my life when one will appeal to me more than the others. Take right now for example, the carp bug has got me, and a couple of months back I was mad about a local water, Funtley Pond, and had to be there every spare hour I had. Even taking the kids with me as an excuse to be there when, really, I had parent responsibilities. The funny thing has passed now. I enjoyed that but got itchy feet and had to move on. One of my favourite places to fish alone was always the moat. I have many wonderful memories of when I began fishing there. It was unspoilt, untouched, and practically unfished. I had the place to myself, and at the time, didn't realise how lucky I was. Things have changed there now, and for selfish reasons I wish they hadn't, but whatever I think of the moat and what it has become, it's still a magical place to spend some time. And with that in mind, I found a spare evening and decided to go. A trip down memory lane, if you will, and I'm glad I did. The layout has changed somewhat. The weed is all gone now too, and it can get busy at times, but on this particular evening, it was just me and the moat. Just how it always was. I'd been baiting a few swims for a couple of days and opted for the swim with no steps as my starting point. Gently crept down to the water's edge, laid my trap close to the bank and sat back to await proceedings. It didn't take too long and the rod tip swung round. A spirited battle commenced, and soon enough a classic moat common was brought to the awaiting net. The rest of the trip passed rather uneventfully on the fishing front, but it was lovely to wander the banks once more, stopping at various favourite spots of mine, retracing old footsteps and chasing around those wily old carp. In typical fashion, when I have the fishing bug, I just have to go. Like, all the time. Just a week later I was back out, but this time completely different surroundings. I switched the still, ancient moat for the open coast. Well, it was the creek, but it was fairly open. This particular spot is a favourite of mine, and is usually quiet until I release a video of me catching bass. Then it can get busy for a while. I arrived fairly late in the day, to fish late afternoon into dusk, one of my favourite times of the day. Such a contrast to the moat, or indeed any quiet carp water for that matter. I think that's the key, quiet. For someone who likes to fish alone, I can decide upon the venue to match the mood that I'm in. I always strive for solitude, that's easy to find. But when it comes down to a choice of quiet or exciting, the creek, actually the sea in general, is exciting, often furious. The creek itself is far from furious, but the tide can run quite fierce here at times, and I only ever fished the first hour or two of the flood. I rocked up as usual with light tackle, minimal gear, and a few crabs as bait. I do often use worms here when I can't source any crabs, but they do tend to get pestered more by crabs when using ragworm as bait. Sometimes I catch quite quickly from this spot, sometimes it can happen a little later in the tide, as it did on this particular occasion. A ringing on the bell gets the blood pumping, and although I've never caught any really big bass from here, slightly over 5 pounds being the best, I still wonder with every bite if this is going to be the one. fish was somewhere around the £2 mark. A wonderfully clean fish, spirited and sparkling. A quick admirer and it was back to the water to live another day. Things went quiet for close to an hour, and then just before darkness began to fall, the rod was over again. From the off I could tell this one was bigger, holding out there in the current, using its size and power well. I had to wander along the bank to land this one, a fish I'd guessed somewhere between £3 and £4. A magnificent fish and exactly what I'd come for. Another quick show to the camera and once again my prize was released. While I was holding it up for the camera, the rod tip was banging away behind me, but I missed that bite. Once again my prize was released. I think it's as exciting to catch them as it is to watch them swim away. When it was too dark to see, I packed away and headed home, happy